Once again, it's time for the RaceSpotTV audience to decide where we land in Friday night primetime. And you've decided for some Monza madness. Welcome along to the Production Car SimLab Challenge, as we'll break out 4 very ordinary cars for an extraordinary race. Delighted to have you all along once again for the ride here on Friday night primetime. Delighted as well that Cameron Roger joins myself, Arjuna Kankipati, in the commentary booth. No a stranger to a primetime race, but going to be interesting to see what we've got in store for ourselves tonight. Timing available at RaceSpot.tv/timing, but let's dive straight into, well, I guess, what the options were coming into this one, because relatively even, Cam, in terms of, I'd say, what the other options were going to be, but seemingly the majority almost conform to the Production Car Challenge at Monza Junior.
Yeah, I think the track might have been persuading some people here because, yes, that's right, it's the junior course at Monza, so it's pretty much half of the track. Halfway down the front straight, we do a right, go for a little chicane, then come back out on the exit of Ascari. So it's going to be only 4 corners today, and certainly with these cars as well, it should be quite close between the 4 classes that we've got. Some good other options as well there, but it seems like the production cars was just that little bit further ahead for this one.
Absolutely, and well, it's not the first time, rather the last time that these drivers will end up visiting Monza. Here's a look at the schedule where they've been going, already halfway through as well, this 2020 Season 3 of iRacing official competition. As always, they visit some interesting configurations. They'll return to the Temple of Speed in week 9 without the chicane. We'll see if we come back and see a very different sort of a race. Watkins Glen Road America, and then Daytona NASCAR Road, which means Cameron, at already a rather lengthy track, they've decided let's add 1 more corner into the mix.
Yeah, I guess it's probably good, though, for these cars, because that straight is going to be massively long there at Daytona. So the extra chicane just come out of NASCAR 4. That'll be certainly quite good for them. So yeah, it's definitely a bit of a different style of racing that we sometimes see here. We often see, GT cars, prototypes, that sort of thing, the more sophisticated style of race cars. But yeah, obviously coming into this, it's going to be a little bit slower, a little bit more, cars moving around and not doing what you want.
No, I think we're looking forward to this, especially given that, as ever, you expect there to be an element of the traffic playing its part. We're looking at some of those infield shots, but drivers out there on track for qualifying, less than 2 minutes to go. Most drivers actually already have their time set. That's a big old slide from the number 4 machine, showing just how treacherous it can truly be to enter your way through the first sector. And now tuck to the right, effectively spit yourself directly through the exit of Ascari and into the Parabolica. We're not going to see the full lap here, though, but realistically, we're talking about maybe 4 corners, if that.
And as you see with the Clios, GR86 and the MX-5, all of their pole position times as it stands are within a few tenths of a second. It's just the Mustangs that are slightly out ahead by a couple of seconds, and the grid is actually ordered in terms of times and not by class. So we could get all mixed up coming onto this first lap. So it's going to be short and fast. There's going to be a lot of laps today, which is good considering there's only 4 corners each lap.
I guess that's the graphic that you really need to look at then, depending on where we're all going to line on up. I always enjoy these sort of races because you get to see who has understood that there are races within races and how aggressive do you want to be. 7th in the class for Jesus Cañero, and he will find a couple of tenths of improvement, but should not jump him up in terms of starting spot. It's going to be 23rd overall for him. So just 20 seconds to go, and he has burned through his allotted attempts in qualifying, and so now just gets a few more laps under his belt. For many drivers, Cam, this is their first experience of proper multi-class racing.
Yeah, we have a few quite low I ratings here, actually, which is actually nice to see, though. That we're not just talking about the pro drivers always. We're giving the opportunity for some newer drivers to iRacing to get out there. We even have a couple of D-licensed drivers in here, so it's going to be awesome. We're looking at about 27 laps today for this 25-minute race as well. So loads of action coming away, and hopefully we can see some nice battles, because I'm sure there's going to be quite a lot of slipstream down these 2 long straights.
Absolutely. I think Cam is also correct in that we are going to be ordered up in terms of times and not by class, and so going to be a jumbled up start, and I'm sure going to be pretty fascinating to see who's going to be the most aggressive in this 25-minute timed affair. Ready to go, though, for Week 6 of Friday Night Primetime, already halfway through 2023 Season 3. Trenton McMillan's going to get us underway here at Monza Junior in the Mustang field. He'll have Nate Whalen alongside, 6/10 the margin there with Brandon Chase, only then 100th further back. DeMarco Stocks lines up 4th with Henk-Jan Ober in 5th position, alongside the first of the Clios, Alan Oleg, will be hoping to work his way forward from row number 3. Dan Blake and Juan Mata will be in close pursuit, and then the first of the GR86s, Steve Cox, has then a Miata alongside. Aaron Godmulder will be in 10th spot. All sorts of jumbled up, and then you get to the Team Watson racing car of Nicholas Sudik. David McCree will be back in 12th spot, and then Mikhail Shandikov, Mike Ophetfeld, if that's truly with all the spaces intended, Bruno Viviano, Dolph Ertz, and then Per Sandberg and Matt Slate through the top 18. Mario trying to work his way forward from the outside of row number 9. It's Jamie Smith and then Tom Watson, 19th and 20th positions, as we still continue to work our way through this jumbled up order. It's Roy Merobe and then Luis Salmeron in 21st and 22nd, Jesus Conero, and then Lee Savage in the GR86 back in 24th spot. Handful more times on the board, only back to 29th position, and then you get into the drivers that did not put times on the board, the likes of Luis Diaz, Jared Sanchez, Francisco Sens, Adam Bates, and then Michael Jones, who bring two very similarly liveried cars into the fray. They're getting ready to rumble, and there's a state trooper that runs on the outside of the front row. That's definitely not a paint scheme that's going to scare a bunch. Rolling start if you're curious. And so they get a full pace lap with which now to warm their tires. We have lost Cameron Roger for the time being. See if we can get him dialed up on the commentary booth in a second. This is expected to be a pretty frenetic race. 34 drivers going out there and getting ready to do battle, and I mean, Cam, ultimately staying out of trouble going to be so important.
Yeah, it is. Even it's a sprint race, there's still obviously quite a few laps. Therefore, if you can avoid the carnage on those first couple, you will be obviously getting yourself into a nicer place at the end, and you are going to be looking at getting obviously the place in your class as such, so therefore you want to be keeping out of the way of the other classes. And despite what the the series was telling me, apparently we are split up in qualifying.
I saw the same timing as you as well. That's a little bit disappointing. So it does mean that each of the classes have given each other some room. They will go racing at the same time. 4 individual races get ready to start at different points around this very short 2.4 kilometer 4-turn configuration of Monza. It's a trip to the Temple of Speed like no other. It is Monza madness personified. Pace car off and away, field left in control of Trenton McMillan, and the Ford Mustangs rumble to the line. We're racing for the SimLab Production Car Challenge. Don't forget, we'll be onto the brakes a little bit earlier than expected. Watch those cones, and effectively as you cross under those lights, you're already spotting the braking markers. Whalen instantly has contact with Chase, and as the Clios try and work their way on through, there's a Mustang stranded.
Oh, and everyone tries to avoid. Look how wide it is there, actually, as we've got a massive gap back to the next class coming through this final corner. The MX-5s are getting their race underway, but that's so wide into T1. You can really dive down the inside. It's clear it's all getting caught up on each other as well.
Yeah, it's 3 wide for a moment as Adam Bates, Dan Blake, and Alan Oleg start to squabble. But look at that! 4 wide amongst the MX-5s in towards turn number 1 on the inside, and maybe the bravest of them all. Hetfeld's going to take the point. What a brave move, but surely just the start of the drafting train, and we know that traffic's going to play its part.
Oh, it certainly will, and it'll be interesting. Of course, the lap time is quite different, but I'm sure a couple of cars will be slightly faster through those corners and then even slower or faster down these straights. But let's have a look at this slipstream once again. You're not going to be able to lead the pack, that is for sure, as Heveld there to the outside. He's going to be losing that place. Sandberg comes to the inside with a nice clean move as they get onto the brakes, and diving in behind as well is obviously the cars following it.
I almost feel like we should spend more time watching the GR86s and the MX-5s than anything else, because we know that the draft plays such a strong part. Their third almost runs into the back of second, so Viviano almost has a moment there as the GR86 is through turn one and then have a Clio that is stranded. There is all sorts of shenanigans happening, and we don't even have traffic rear its head. Big send from the 5, Gordon Waller trying to get to second.
Oh, he couldn't quite make that stick, but he has, of course, got some cars coming in behind him. They need to look out for, as I said, Jamie Smith, I believe, in behind him. The track map was interesting. We're already spread out across the whole length of the circuit, such is the way it's obviously so short around here. So we're going side by side once again already in towards turn number 1 as the classes work their way through. A bit of a replay here to see. Was this a little bit earlier, maybe on that first lap? Huge contact as we come through turn 2.
And so that's Dan Blake that got the worst of it, but he was not the only sort of incident and victim that we've had so far. This is going to be a solo incident, it would seem, for Pablo Delgado, who has some technical issues, and then that contributes him to spinning himself slightly around and getting all sorts of discombobulated. The quick fit car of Steve Cox was momentarily the leader in the GR86s, but as the MX-5s come up into play potentially as well, they will push themselves wide on the exit. The 13 gets run into the wall, and now big drama for Steve Cox.
That was a huge hit there to the inside coming out of turn 3. Look at all these cars coming down this back straight in towards the Curva Alboreto and the Parabolica for the final time on the lap. It's so easy just to get caught up in these battles when you're 2-3 cars deep, getting that slipstream, but you've got to be keeping it careful, and that unfortunately is going to be a race-ending disaster, I would assume. But the race for the GR86 is coming close down in towards turn 1.
But not for the lead. Nick Sudik in that bright yellow Team Watson racing car has been able to slightly stretch his legs at the very front of the field, and it comes as still side by side for second. It's Shandikov and McCree that will go door to door, but sweeping around the outside in the Toyo Tires liveried entry will be that number 9 machine, still continuing to focus on this little gaggle because Mustangs have separated themselves out, as have the Clio Cups for the most part after Dan Blake's incident. I have not really seen the Clios fighting in and amongst themselves. MX-5 still waiting for the traffic to be a factor for them.
And let's see how much faster these MX-5s are than the Clios, or maybe not, down this back straightaway. Definitely get a little bit of slipstream, and that is going to be helping Zandberg hold on to the lead in this class, as Hetfeld is not able to get too close. 3/10 is the gap coming towards the final corner, but not enough to send it down the inside. But as you know, when traffic gets involved in the corners, that can always turn things around. Yet the Clios definitely slightly slower as he gets a bit of a bad run here out onto the front straight.
The leader is having to deal with a bit of traffic, as that's a car off to pit lane. I'm going to get out of the MX-5 battle. So McMillan's going to come up to these drivers, you'd assume not this time by, but maybe in a handful of laps. Oh, close there for the MX-5s under braking, not running into one another as they cycle their way on forward. GR86 is still in one long conga line of their own. And are they catching some stragglers in the Clio Cup? I think Nick Sudik is, I think that's for sure. It's going to be interesting how that complexion plays out, with the Clios seemingly struggling a little bit more in the race than the GR86s.
Yeah, that's a front-wheel drive. I don't think is, of course, helping in a couple of the corners, and I think just slightly slower in general. These GR86s, of course, coming recently to iRacing and taking over that rookie sort of placement in the calendar as well. And to be honest, been a really good addition and showing some great sights. Also, a bit earlier in the year, back at, was it the Nürburgring 24, we had them out there on the track doing some good business as well.
Yeah, no, we have seen some fun. I was laughing because I just remember final corner, the GR86s, final corner of the race, I should say. After 24 hours, the surviving GR86s were trying to get filed up to take a photo, and, well, there was some GR86 murdering that was done on the final corner of the race. Just how the story tended to play out. Side by side into that final corner we go. This is a 4th on back, and they've got to be careful they don't lose Shandikov and McRae up front, who are starting to pull their legs as Nicholas Sudik begins to now get into the Clio Cups. GR86 is looking strong.
As we're getting almost 3 wide there as we come across the start-finish line. They try and get the slipstream once again. It's actually still a pretty long run for these cars down towards the braking zone, in towards turn number 1, and of course so wide down the inside. You're going to be seeing people dive as we're two abreast, 2 rows deep, coming down into the inside. And it looks like you're going to be around the outside there for that green car, holding it all the way. It's so wide there actually, you can actually do that pretty easily, which is quite nice, managing to hold on for now.
I don't think anyone actually changed positions through that cycle, so it goes to show how things will play out. That goes to show that you cannot swing that wide through the corner, and then the quick fit entry, the 14 of Steve Cox just on the grass, didn't have the grip, and around she went. And not the only incident that we've had. All drivers who have been involved in dramas, though, have been into pit lane and back out on track. We'll have to see if the same is the case for Rafael Charo.
Indeed, and yeah, these Clios definitely probably struggling the most out of the order of out of all the cars on the track, but certainly you know, having a bit of fun here. 17 and a bit minutes to go in this race. Plenty of laps there. Different lines coming in towards turn 1. As we've seen Sudik getting a bit of a better run through turn 1, getting wide in turn 2. Going to have to do a bit of a switchback for the Clio as come out onto the back straight, but leading by 1.5 seconds now, so he's really enjoying that one, and actually the Clio getting out of the way nicely for him.
The gap is coming down slightly, though, had grown to over 2 seconds, and so keep your eye on that. Keep your eye on the Clio Cups as well, the 2 surviving ones at the front, where Alan Olek put it on pole, but has had to watch behind. And Juan Mata, I'm not sure if that's former Manchester United football player Juan Mata, but someone that's having fair share of internet misconnectivities right now, and not going to try and go to the inside, which might set him up nicely for a bit of a switchback.
He is still there, though, trying to get the run. Interestingly, having a Ferrari badge on a Renault. We won't talk about that one, but coming through turn 2, certainly getting very close to now. Turn 3 is the important one. Get the momentum, get the run down this back straight. But I don't think he's actually gained enough there, unfortunately, through that first sector. And he's going to be having to sit behind. But the slipstream does work pretty well, actually. He's getting a bit closer and a bit closer, coming towards the braking zone for the final corner. And that is enough for Oleg to actually defend coming into the braking zone.
Nice and tidily done. We've got side-by-side for the lead in the MX-5s as Gort Mulder, has been able to sweep in front of not just Hetfeld but Per Sandberg as well. But draw fed back now to those behind. The 2's going to cycle potentially back up towards the point, in towards what you called the curve at Alboreto, but still lives on in my heart cam as the Parabolica. There's some Mustang traffic, by the way. That's going to prove some fun.
I think Gormulder there just caught the rear end of Sandberg coming out of that final corner. Oh, sorry, Hetfeld actually making the contact, I should say, for that second place. Hetfeld's got back up there, of course, leading the race a bit early on. Sandberg's got that half a second gap as the Mustangs going through the middle of the MX-5s. A little bit more pace down this front straight as the MX-5s now all come to the inside to try and get that bit of a narrow line and defend them off. But look, 3-4 different lines coming into this corner. Amazing to see, but Sandberg's still holding on with that little bit of a gap, but I still think that podium is going to change around now.
So we're not even 10 minutes into this race either. Still 33 cars out there and cycling around, but with gaps of varying sizes now for the lead. Clio Cup still split by effectively a string. On Mata continues to have those internet issues in his... are we calling it a Renrari, or are we calling it
Inferno?
I was trying to figure... Okay, there you go. You were able to say it. I couldn't.
Yeah, I think Inferno, I actually quite like that one. But, I mean, of course, that is why we love having the livery capabilities on iRacing for the drivers to have a bit of fun with that. Unfortunately, it's not adding the extra horsepower that I think he would hope from, you know, the stickers. 20 horsepower each on a Honda, but on a Renault, maybe not. Coming in towards the final corner, they've actually got a bit of lap traffic coming up their way from another car in that class. That might be Dan Blake. He went into the pit lane a few laps ago.
Yeah, good call there. It is the 11. We keep pulling up that track map. 2.4 kilometers, 33 cars. There's not much space to go out there and find.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's the one, what's that, probably about 500-meter gap coming down that front straight. And apart from that, everyone else is pretty spread out. Of course, we had the bit of a split between the two grids, between the top two and the bottom two classes. That, of course, added a little bit of a gap in the field. Probably a good thing, actually, considering how manic these MX-5s have been. And coming back, already we're seeing a new driver get in. It's Mayobre. He's come up the way. He's in 4th place. Now going for the race lead. Up the inside, it's going to be, he's got the slipstream as we've got all the cars coming in behind. They're all trying to go past Sandberg in one move. 3 wide to the inside, as that is going to be Sandberg going down to 3rd place, gets bumped out of the way as well.
And then further contact means that after inserting himself into the fun, the 4 gets pointed in the wrong direction, and Sandberg's going to lose the draft of those in front. So important now for those 3 cars to not squabble too much and to try and break away.
As we're getting up close towards the 86 ahead there, side by side as well, coming through a couple of the Clios. So it's definitely come to that point of the race where we're seeing some merger of the classes, and when you get that, there's always potential action as well. Despite there not being too much of a difference, we're actually, in terms of lap time, we're actually seeing quite often these classes converging on each other, which is good to see. As Hetveld leads, coming down the front straight away now. Gortmuller comes to the inside.
And you can see in front with those GR86s, lap times have somewhat equalized amongst the two, and so they're not really pulling out a gap. Not far away from the MX-5s, getting a draw from the GR86s as well. Once again, side by side for the MX-5 lead, but halfway through the race, they've still got 12.5 minutes with which to squabble and with which to work. In fact, they're closing on the GR86s out in front, and unfortunately, per Sandberg, no fault of his own, heading down to pit lane.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shame. Such a strong start to this race, and even even in a sprint race, he's going to be trying to. It's actually maybe a fast repair because he stopped for very little time, so he might actually be able to get out and score some half decent positions if there's some issues for some of the other drivers in that category. The MX-5 is the biggest category out on the track, as Hetveld is now coming again to try and get his lead back.
And so the thing to note as well with the fast repair is that's why we have all the cars still out there and running. 33 took the green, 33 still circulating. That's why we keep talking about the busyness of the track. We see the tail end of the GR86s that continue to squabble, but it's at the front of the GR86 field where Shandikov has slightly broken away from David McCree, and now Nicholas Sudik well and truly under fire. You see 3 GR86s in line, yes, but it's not 3 GR86s all on the same lap. Steve Cox in the mix too.
Yeah, I was getting a bit confused by the timing screen there, thinking that's a bit less than 1 second, but you're right. Definitely cars, unfortunately, going a lap down now and getting involved in that. That does actually give some extra slipstream, though, to Sandikov as he comes towards this first corner where we're seeing, look at that massive slipstream as well from the lap car in the background. Sudik needs to not really look in the mirrors and not get, that's a huge send potentially down the inside as Shandikov tries to make up that position, but flashing the headlights as well. Yeah, Sudik is, just needs to put down the laps and not get distracted from behind.
That's running out wide for both, not just the race leader, but the lapped car as well. Good car control, they're able to bring it back onto the tarmac without too much drama, but if you didn't think they were pushing, now you know. Getting on through the lapped car, no one separates now Shandikov from his target, 4/10 up the road.
And the slipstream was actually working quite well there on the back marker, so I think he's going to be able to have a go at this, especially as we have 10 minutes to go in this race. I don't think Sudik is going to be able to hold on, coming right to the side of the track, the shortest line possible, saving every thousandth of a second. I don't know if this is going to be the lap, while Sudik is definitely under pressure now.
In towards turn 1, going to be this time by, but it's that run out of the curve at Alboreto that is the best of the passing opportunities, and you're seeing Viviano try and take that spot from Tom Watts. That's 4th, and into turn number 1, sliding through the inside and cutting a bit of the grass, but nice and easily scything his way on through. MX-5 leader, by the way, into the tail end of the GR86s and now trying to break away.
And look at the size difference between the cars, actually. GR86 is not a big car, but the MX-5 is so small, seeing them side by side there. But yeah, this is the difficult point. Let's see actually on this straightaway. Are the MX-5 slightly faster? I think that might be just in a straight line there, which is an interesting one, considering the MX-5s are the slower class in terms of the standings at this moment in time. Hetfeld there trying to get up the inside in towards the final corner. Doesn't want to let his rival get away, but he's getting stuck in this traffic.
Gotta wonder if there is some damage on the 23 that maybe does compromise it a bit, because 58.4 for him last time by, 57.8 for Shandikov in second. So we know there is maybe a little bit more speed in the car. Have to see if it's there in the driver. There are your GR86 leaders, by the way, onto the back straightaway, as it is going to be Hetfeld that squeaks on through. Mustang going to try and get on through the pair of MX-5s as well, but 4 classes around any track is challenging. 4 classes around 2.4 kilometers. Definitely a trial by fire for some of these drivers into endurance racing.
And especially when it's only 4 corners as well with such long straights, that makes the corners even more important, so you do not want to be held up any longer than you can. But we have all these battles out on track in all the different classes. GR86 is, of course, going for the race lead. That's Sudik in the yellow machine trying to defend.
Hetfeld's been tagged by the Mustang traffic and now clipped by the 15 of Jamie Smith that had absolutely nowhere to go, and traffic robs us of a battle for the MX-5 lead.
That is a shame with that one, as we did see a quick swap of positions for the GR86 lead as well, so the leads in all classes is starting to open up, as that's Steve Cox getting back involved in the battle, trying to get himself out of the way. But Shandikov definitely got ahead on the timing, so I wonder if he absolutely sent it down the inside of turn 1, but he's dropped back, so potentially just running a little bit too wide. Flashing off the headlights for Studik as it's starting to heat up, and unfortunately going back to the MX-5s, it's now a 10-second lead for Gortemolder there, so that crash unfortunately has given him an easy victory.
Yeah, so let's take a look at what happened on the replay in towards that final corner. I mean, MX-5s, or slower classes, are told to run your line, and not much you could really do after the initial contact to avoid the subsequent bit of drama. But you've got to wonder, it's a send from the Mustang for sure. But was there really an opportunity? As Shandikov's had a moment of his own, and now Nick Sudik breaks away at the front. David McCree grabs second.
Shandikov's been looking very spicy into that first corner for the last 5 laps or so, and it looks like he's come undone into that corner. As also in the Clios, Juan Mata goes towards the front. Oleg drops down into second place. We've seen that one coming for quite a while, but Oleg actually gets a great run out of the Parabolica up the inside. He's going to take the place back.
It's that front wheel drive, right? You've got to set the draft up and that momentum up as well, and with 6 minutes to go, those technical issues for Juan Mata surely not going to help him in the battle. It's not going to help Alan Olek either, as they try and figure out how to sort this situation out. Let's go back and then take a look as well what happened with Steve Cox and Shandikov, if we can, because another defining moment in the battle for a victory. Steve Cox following in from behind, and he gets unfortunately all sorts of squirrely, and Shandikov's the one that gets unstuck as well.
That is not what I was expecting to see from the replay. Steve Cox is miles behind as well, just completely handbrakes into that corner, and unfortunately taking out the second place driver, and that is such a difficult thing. Shandikov will be a little bit annoyed with that one as well. When you get blue flag drivers in your way, you don't want them to get involved with you, let alone crash into you instead.
No, definitely not, and frustration, I'm sure. Trenton McMillan, inset on the bottom of your screen, continues to lead now by almost 30 seconds in the Mustang class. Been a relatively quiet day for him so far. He's got 5.5 minutes, so about 5-6 laps left to go. Juan Mata's been able to have a look to try and get on through, and realistically, let's be honest, he's the only chance that we have here, Cam, of a battle for the lead in the closing stages.
And what a battle it has been. Of course, Mata keeps on blinking a little bit, but he's looking still strong in terms of the pace, getting that slipstream up towards the final corner. Millimeter by millimeter, but actually backs out of that one, so maybe trying to get the momentum onto the front straight. That is obviously where you want to overtake into the harder braking zone. There's not too much of a braking zone, even in these cars, into that final corner, but into turn 1, that's hardest braking zone. He keeps it tight up the inside, trying to get the run.
It's a bit wide, potentially, from Oleg, but maybe just trying to get on the power earlier and carry more speed and momentum. But he's the one punching the hole in the air, the one feeding draft to those behind, and so ultimately he's just watching over his shoulder and waiting for Juan to make his opportunity. There's lots of puns that can be made with Juan, including the ones that the journalist made to Juan Pablo Montoya going back now almost 2 full decades. But realistically, comes down to the final lap of the race and the one opportunity surely into Parabolica.
Yeah, do you want to be leading or do you want to be in second place? It doesn't look like it's that easy to overtake, so maybe the opportunity to be in first place is going to be what you want, as we're getting Oleg sort of half defending by a couple of tyre widths there, not using the full track, doesn't want to completely open up the door for Mata to dive it down the inside. But this is really the difference in the driving styles that we've been seeing. But this time Oleg keeps it to the inside. That'll be a bit better to defend down this front straight.
They've got the leader coming through to put another lap down on them, so that should mean that they are relatively set on knowing how many laps are left in this race. Believe we've got 4 to go, and not just for the race leader but for these drivers as well. Off into turn number 1, concertinaing up once again under the brakes, but it's as they head through the right and onto that back straightaway where you want to be as far to the left as possible. Maybe Oleg getting a little bit better run as well, and Juan Mata going all the way to the grass and kicking up a bit of grass as well.
And I think he's got some decent momentum, looking to the inside, trying to get his Clio down the inside of his rival in towards this final corner. But Oleg just seems to be getting good enough exits there to hold on, as Mata once again coming in towards the final corner, goes a little bit up the inside there. Oleg goes wide this time around, changing lines. He comes back to try and cover off, but is that going to be enough for Mata to try and get the overtake? No, it's not. Once again, Oleg seems to be getting a slightly worse mid-corner, but the exit, he seems to be finding the line.
Have to keep an eye as well on the fact that there is McMillan up the inside of second and now up the inside of first in the braking zone. And Mustang a little bit spongy on the compression on the brakes, but rolls its way through tidily. 55.976 McMillan last time by. That's only 0.6 off of his fastest. It goes to show that these Clio Cups can be pretty quick, but is it going to be the opportunity of that traffic that gives Mata the impetus to pull alongside? He's got a nose in front momentarily into the braking zone, but he's compromised himself a little bit too tight on the entry, you'd have to say. Now sweeps up to the left, but back into line initially, sends it deep and has a go.
Side by side through the apex of Parabolica is going to be the shorter line, massively shorter line for Mata. He's going to have a whole car length ahead, taking the lead with just under 2 minutes to go. But Oleg seems to get the exit. They're going to be side by side down the front straight. They've got a country mile in between them as they now converge on their racing line towards turn number 1. Can Mata hold on? Just a couple of laps to go.
It's quite hard to commentate on a car that's blinking in and out. It's also equally difficult to drive against a car that's blinking in and out. Now, Mata's going to be not aware of the fact that he is blinking. It will only be a factor for his competitors. Is Oleg, though, just waiting, biding his time and thinking, you know what? Final laps of the race, that's when it is my time to shine. Battle for second in MX5. Well, 10 seconds plus now off the back of your race leader. Doesn't mean that Salmeron doesn't want to hold the spot. Doesn't mean that Kurkai wants to try and steal it away from him. They've got some cars fighting from them behind as well, and it's going to be drivers trying to cut to the wall to be as defensive as possible.
Oh my God, they are getting very tense in the final couple of laps, the final opportunities to make some moves, as Kurasi is going to be diving it down the inside, trying to defend, but round the outside his opponent comes. A bit of contact on the inside there. They're going to be getting one of the lap cars coming through, and that battle is going to end, unfortunately, with the gap opening up.
Ultimately, that incident allowed Gordon Mulder to break away in 17 seconds. Now that gap, he'll be delighted with how things have been faring out for him. We're getting ready to see the white flag, not just for Juan Mata and for Alan Olick, but for Trenton McMillan as well. 28 seconds clear of the rest of his Mustang competitors. He's just got one more lap, 2.4 kilometers, and plenty of traffic to navigate his way through.
And certainly it's actually going to be the final lap. Yes, it is. And he's going to have a really, really comfortable victory here.
Well, that's the quirk of the series, I guess. We got caught out by a few of them. But for Trenton McMillan, it's going to be that victory at the line. And by no means comfortable. Brandon Chase and Nate Wallen will end up having to squabble and settle for second and third positions. They'll have a bit of a drag race to the line in and amongst themselves, but it should be advantage going the way of Brandon Chase. Juan Mata, Alan Olek, respectively first and second in the Clio Cup. First and second for Nicholas Sudik and for David McRae in the GR86s. And one final winner, it's Aaron Gortmulder, who will head to the line in what was expected to be the closest class of them all, but ends up being the second largest margin of victory. A trip to Monza Junior. I dubbed it Monza Madness. Was I wrong, Cam?
Absolutely not. That was crazy. I think if we had one class, it might have been a little bit calmer, but the fact we had the 4 classes, the 4 different race leads, and of course even contact between the classes multiple times there, certainly that is what Friday Night Primetime is all about. Bit of entertainment here on the Friday night and getting some new names to RaceSpotTV as well. So, yeah, definitely that was an interesting choice from the fans, and I definitely appreciate it, and I would have it again.
Hey, we get to travel around and see what everyone in the iRacing community is doing, including in this SimLab Production Car Challenge, where Trenton McMillan, 30 seconds clear of Brandon Chase, Nate Wallen, Adam Bates, Michael Jones, Henk Jan Ober, and then DeMarco Starks, the only car 1 lap down. First and second, big margin. Second through sixth, not as large. Did look like it was quite fun. We did not get to see too much of it, though, because the other classes were embroiled in some fun fights. Juan Mata ends up in front of Alan Olek. It turns out that the draft on the final lap, not necessarily that important. Rafael Charo in front of Dan Blake after both cars got tangled up in incidents, but stayed on the lead laps, unlike LW Adamic, the 5-car Clio Cup class, showing that you only need 2 to tango. Nicholas Sudik victorious in the Toyota GR86s after Shandikov got tangled up with lap traffic. David McRae grabbed second at the expense of the number 9, with Bruno Viviano being able to climb up to third. Tom Watts in front of Gerard Sanchez, with Dolph Ertz, Lee Savage. Shandikov down in 8th, the first car 1 lap down. Matt Slate also a lap down with him. Steve Cox 8 laps down, and maybe there will be some more between Shandikov and Cox. Luis Diaz, the last of the GR86s before we get into the MX5s. Both of the 2 slowest classes, the most numerous, 11 in each. Gortmulder almost 20 seconds clear of Krukai at the line. Hetfeld settles for third, with Salmeron in front of Smith, and then the rest just by virtue of where the Mustang leader ended up being. 1 lap down on Gortmulder, with Roy Moyorbre, Jesus Conero, Pablo Delgado, and then Per Sandberg and David Valero through your top 10. 2 laps down for Francisco Sens, who had the most interesting race, you'd have to say, of all of your MX5s. So, an interesting trip to Monza, that is for sure. And now, well, as ever, the choice is left up to the RaceSpotTV audience as to what we are going to see in 7 days' time. On July the 28th, it's not week 5, it's week 7. But a choice of GT3 racing, of NASCAR road racing, of Formula V, whatever you want to call it, racing, or Formula 4s at Circuit of the Americas. I mean, very different sorts of things going on there. Cam, what stands out to you?
I mean, I'm definitely a bit of an open wheel guy, so maybe the Formula 4s. However, the Xfinities, I do enjoy that as well. So around Road America, that's always a bit of an interesting one. But if you, of course, want to have your say, get yourself on the RaceSpotTV Discord with the link there on the screen and in the Primetime voting channel. Get your votes in, and then we'll be seeing, of course, the winner of that next week.
Yep, racespot.wtf/Discord, the place to be, not just to be a part of the primetime voting, but for anything else that we do, including if you want to make sure you get your paint submitted on time for various iRacing special events, because tomorrow we get ready to go twice around the clock. Head to the Ardennes for the iRacing Falcon Tire 24 Hours of Spa. Cam, you and I will be on for the first couple of hours of the race, starting at 12:30 p.m. UTC. Spa's always interesting, 50 GT3 machines with balance of performance to talk about. I think it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's always a bit of an a different one in terms of some of the endurance races we do, because it's single class. That changes the way it goes, and of course track limits and things like that, ever a talking point there. And then racing through the night is not an easy track. It's easy to overpush in some areas, and crashes are quite common. So yeah, definitely looking forward to that one in just what's that, just over 12 hours time, about 15 hours away.
Don't say 12 hours, yeah, give me a bit more sleep than that. Of course, it's the last of the major 24-hour special events on iRacing as well, so I'm sure there's going to be plenty of focus for the drivers at a track that they have plenty of experience at. The Production Car Challenge will return to Monza later on this season. However, it will not be to this Monza Junior configuration. They'll blast past the first chicane, and maybe we'll be here to view it all. Don't forget RaceSpot.wtf/primetime, the place that you can make sure your voice is heard as we continue our journey around the iRacing official series. For now, though, it's time to bid you farewell. For Cam Roger, alongside myself, Arjuna Kanki-Party, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow for the latest of the iRacing special events. But for now, bidding you farewell from 4 very crazy races at Monza. So until next time on RaceSpot TV.